The other one someplace else.
Aiden is here, so I assume we're good to go. Aiden, you'll tell me if we're not. All right. Welcome to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee on Thursday, February 18th. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westboro Diversity and Inclusion Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westboro's website at www.town.westboro.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. You may watch live on YouTube/Westboro TV or on Westboro TV cable channels 28 on Verizon and 192 on Charter, or watch a recorded version on the website westborotv.org under the Government tab, Meetings on Demand. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort is being made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means, via Westboro TV. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westboro's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. For members of the public who wish to contribute to future meetings, you may do so by sending an email to the email address diversity@town.westboro.ma.us, or you may call me as the committee chairperson at 508-366-3090. All right, we have a very full agenda today, so I'm going to get started. I don't see Jim Robbins yet, but he will be here any moment. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were quickly on the annual report that I wrote for 2020. I did it very quickly and without consulting any of you. So my hope is that it was all right, but I want to know what your thoughts are.
I'll start. I thought it was really nicely said. I like how in the goals you had put that exactly what we're working on. So I liked also how you put in the religious and cultural events. Like we had kind of talked about that, but not dive deep into it. So I liked that that was still a goal for our 2021, but engaging the staff and increasing our language, which we've been talking about. But I thought the whole thing was really nicely written. So thank you.
Thank you. So I will bring, at our next meeting, I will bring those goals forward. We didn't look at the goals from the previous year before, so we will do that. It gives us a little bit more guidance and intention in our work together. And, you know, it's something we can reference back as we need to. All right. Jim Robbins is not here yet, so I'm actually going to skip agenda items. So what we have on the agenda, let me just go over that really quickly, is Jim Robbins, who is our Director of Planning for the Town of Westboro, is going to join us and talk about the master plan and the work that the Master Plan Advisory Committee is doing, and specifically invite folks to attend tonight's public meeting for the master plan. So hopefully he'll be with us in a moment. We have our guest, Jeff, from the YMCA, is going to talk about the diversity, equity, and inclusion work happening at the Y. As a community member and a community partner, I just think that we can learn from them and with them and kind of do some of this work together. Superintendent Amber Bach and Assistant Superintendent Daniel Mayer will be joining us for the bulk of the meeting to talk about the results of this survey that was distributed around race and racism. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at the survey results, because we'll be spending more time on talking about the implications of the survey results than we will be talking about the results themselves. And then hopefully at the end of the meeting, we'll have time to talk a little bit more about any other community issues and announcements, touch on a revisiting of the language access plan, and our use of social media. And that'll be all that we have time for. All right, so in lieu of Jim not being here, and I don't want to get us off schedule, I just want to reference the attachment that I sent in the emails leading up to this meeting that advertised the master plan public meeting that's happening tonight. And I'm going to pull that up just so in case there are members of the public who are watching this today so that they can learn about it. So the meeting tonight is being held live virtually. And it is at 6:30, and there is kind of a complicated URL, but hopefully people can reference here, I'll share my screen real quick so people can see it. I can say from being a member of the Master Plan Advisory Committee that every person's participation in these public meetings makes a huge difference, and your voice is heard. So anyone who's a Westboro resident, I strongly encourage you to attend and participate in this meeting. I'll be helping to facilitate a conversation in one of the breakout sessions around housing. So here is the plan. All right. And maybe Jeff, if Jim Robbins pops on for a minute, we might interrupt you just momentarily to see if he has anything to add. Is that okay if we kind of roll with that?
Fine by me.
All right, great. All right, well, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Ladalberte. I don't know if I said it correctly, so please do correct me, who is the executive director of the YMCA of the Boroughs here in Westboro. And take it over, Jeff. You should be able to share your screen.
Awesome. Let me work to share my PowerPoint here with you guys. All right. First off, I just want to, thank Kara and the group for letting me speak on behalf of the YI Central Mass, and really want to commend the work that you guys have been doing. Has spoken with Kara a few times over the past few months and watched some of your meetings on the Westboro webpage, and just to try to get a feel for what you guys are doing, and really proud to be part of a town that's doing this type of work. My hope here today is to spend 10 to 15 minutes explaining how the Y has been tackling this type of work across central Massachusetts, and hopefully share some of our resources that may help you guys on your work moving forward. So a little background on the YMCA as a movement. Ys are set up with local branches like the Burroughs Y here in Westboro, and we're all part of regional associations. In our case, the YMCA of Central Massachusetts, which has an overall governing body of the YMCA of the USA. So it's kind of a three-tiered approach that really puts together the Y's large footprint. The mission statement I have up on the screen here really displays the Y's commitment to diversity, inclusion, and global innovation from the top tier of the YUSA. Here for all. At the Y, we're proud to say that we are here for all, but really, what does for all mean? If some of us are preventing access to different opportunities we need to thrive. So it's something that the Y has always kind of battled around. Equal opportunity really is no longer enough. And to remain relevant to the people we serve and to our communities, to become stronger, safer, and more cohesive, we really need to lead with equity, which means working to identify and remove barriers that have historically prevented some of us from thriving, while ensuring that each individual can access unique support they need to reach their full potential with dignity. The Y has been on a journey to change lives and transform communities for over 176 years. But really, despite our best intentions, our track record is far from perfect. At many points in our history, we too have contributed to the inequities of our communities through policies, practices, procedures that have held certain groups back. Most prominent way, if you just look at our name, right? The Y was founded and called the Young Men's Christian Association, which, as the name says, was exclusive to Christian men. we are determined here at the Y to do better. And as a core component of the Y USA's 2021 operating plan strategy, our equity strategy is really a long-term pathway to help us bring to life our new commitment to For All, which is equity for all. Through the pandemic, has only kind of underscored the critical need for equity-based approach to ensuring well-being in diverse communities we strive to serve. Here are just a few statistics about how the pandemic has affected certain populations throughout the United States through an equity lens. And really, I don't think we will know, the true impact of this pandemic until years to come. There's mental health pieces in here. There's immigration. There's LGBTQ implications in here as well. And the Y really has resources at its fingertips in the form of manpower, training, support from YUSA, as well as over 2,700 YMCAs across the United States to support moving this work forward in our buildings and our communities. And we're certainly looking to partner in this work to make our communities a better place to live and a more equitable place for all. I feel this graphic kind of level sets the equity versus equality conversation. As you guys all know, equality means providing someone the exact same opportunities and resources, really without regard to their unique needs or how they are impacted by institutional, systemic, or societal barriers, which are represented here by having the same box for the equality size of it to reach the apple, right? Conversely, equity is eliminating those barriers, which are limiting each person's success to the opportunities and resources they need to reach their fullest potential, which is simplistically represented here by giving different boxes to reach the apple. So not giving everyone the same resources, but giving folks the resources that they need. So we use this graphic a lot when we're talking with volunteers and donors and our staff within our local YMCAs to help explain what equity is versus equality. Next, I'm going to share a quick 4-minute video that, again, we've used it in many forums, just speaking on privilege, class, and social inequalities. Even though we really won't have time to debrief at the end, I challenge you to think about the populations that you guys serve, the populations in Westboro, and really how this video may shape or change your view on the inequalities that surround us every day.
Hey, line up, everybody line up. We're about to race. Everybody line up. Shoulder to shoulder, take off your backpacks. Basketball, line up, we're about to race. Hey, we are racing for a $100 bill. The winner of this race will take this, a $100 bill. Before I say go, I'm gonna make a couple statements. If those statements apply to you, I want you to take 2 steps forward. If those statements don't apply to you, I want you to stay right where you're at. Take 2 steps forward if both of your parents are still married. Take 2 steps forward if you grew up with a father figure in the home. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a private education. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a free tutor growing up. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to worry about your cell phone being shut off. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to help mom or dad with the bills. Take 2 steps forward if it wasn't because of your athletic ability, you don't have to pay for college. Take 2 steps forward if you never wondered where your next meal was going to come from. I want you guys up here in the front just to turn around and look. Every statement I've made Has nothing to do with anything any of you have done. Has nothing to do with decisions you've made. Everything I've said has nothing to do with what you've done. We all know these people up here have a better opportunity to win this $100. Does that mean these people back here can't race? No. We would be foolish to not realize we've been given more opportunity. We don't want to recognize that we've been given a head start. But the reality is we have. Now, there's no excuse. They still got to run their race. You still got to run your race. But whoever wins this $100, I think it'd be extremely foolish of you not to utilize that and learn more about somebody else's story. Because the reality is, if this was a fair race and everybody was back on that line, I guarantee you some of these black dudes would smoke all of you. And it's only because you have this big of a head start that you're possibly going to win this race called life. That is a picture of life, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing you've done has put you in the lead that you're in right now. When I say go, on your mark, get set, go. If you didn't learn anything from this activity, you're a fool.
One of the more powerful videos that we do share, here at the Y, and there's a lot of different messages in that video, and I think we could probably take this whole meeting to really debrief and digest what happened in that video. But one thing that really sticks out for me is the equality piece and learning about your neighbor and learning about where people come from, and what as community leaders can we do to better learn about our community. I think we're on this continuum of growth that we're going to be on for a long time. And there's a lot of things that have happened in our communities over the past 9-10 months, right? That have really heightened a lot of this. So it's important to check in on your neighbors, to learn about folks, and to continue to do this work. So the Y kind of pairs this into a framework for advancing our equity strategies. So we have 4 key action phases, individual learning, organizational strategies, deliver on commitment, and measure of social change. In addition to 4 guiding principles that kind of guide our work around everything we're doing here, which is commitment, prioritizing, activating, and reflecting. The guiding principles are really used during each phase to ensure that we are partnering effectively with organizations and community stakeholders to achieve these outcomes.
Will we have a chance to comment on this?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly have questions at the end, might be most effective, just so we can have enough time, if that's okay.
Yes, but I absolutely want to comment about this.
Awesome. We'd love to hear your comments. So here are, my intended outcomes for the equity work that we have, and I highlighted 2 outcomes in purple that I feel are really most applicable to this group. Change is certainly tough, and it's going to take all of us to do our part and make Westboro a truly equitable community. But I believe, all the work that this committee has been doing and the other organizations in town, that we have a really strong foundation to initiate this type of positive change within our communities. The Y sits up here on the hill at the corner of Westboro, Northboro and Shrewsbury, kind of tucked away in the corner. But we're up here trying to service provide a service to a lot of different folks. And, from a diversity and inclusion and equity standpoint, the Y has always been doing a lot of work, and we want to continue to do that work and find some new community partners in which to do it. So on this page, I've just kind of thrown together a few pieces of what the Y has been doing, over the past year, just to combat diversity, inclusion, and some equity practices. So RY, similar to what you guys have, we have a diversity inclusion committee at RY made up of all volunteers. We also have one made up of all staff members. We've been working similar to you guys on hiring practices and volunteer recruitment, really to mirror our communities and how we best do that. Teaching our frontline staff some key phrases at our branches to better serve folks in other languages and other backgrounds that are different from ourselves. We hold multicultural events each year, ranging from welcoming weeks. I know you guys have your kindness week coming up. We typically participate in that too, holidays around the world. We have a sliding scale for membership based on household income at the Y to allow our services to all. That's applicable to summer camps and childcare and membership here, trying to make it so it is equitable for all to utilize our services. At the beginning of the pandemic, our organization partnered with the Worcester Public Schools and utilized our vans and our staff to go door to door. And to date, we've served over 700,000 meals to 1,300 unique children that otherwise wouldn't have access to school lunches. The Burroughs branch, we've run some social, emotional, virtual programming, partnering with the Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services. I did see Kara's email earlier about some work that you guys are doing as well. So we'd love to kind of see how we can be involved with that up here as well. We've run different classes to tailor to different populations, women-only swim classes or group exercise classes just for the female population, just due to the different populations that we service in our service area here. I have one last video for you guys that is about 3 minutes as well, and it really captures we've put out a series of videos during the pandemic from the Y Central Mass. So this one, I think is powerful. I work for the Y, right? But I hope you guys find it as powerful as well, just about the work the Y has done in the community throughout the pandemic. So.
I need help, and I don't know what to do.
My mom says it's right where I left it.
I never felt so isolated.
Everything looks and feels so different.
Community is all around us. There's no doubt that we are living in unparalleled times. But at the YMCA, we know exactly where to find community. Whether you live in Southbridge, Fitchburg, Leominster, Westboro, or Worcester, or anywhere else in central Massachusetts, we all continue to battle the impact of COVID-19. We must rely on our combined strength and partner to deliver programs and services that address the needs of children, teens, adults, and seniors.
The Y is open, and we're working hard to exceed local and state protocols to ensure your safety. And don't worry, we can still connect 6 feet apart, even through partitions and in our many online classes and virtual programs. It's important that we take care of ourselves and one another as we navigate this global health crisis. At the YMCA, we're welcoming over 500 children each day for full-day childcare and remote learning. Branches have been transformed into learning centers where students are actively engaged in academics, and then those all-important activities that allow our kids to be kids. Parents can work, knowing their children are being taken care of, learning and having fun, all important and necessary parts of their growth and development. America has not seen such a drastic swing in food insecurity since the Great Depression, which then took nearly a decade to return to pre-depression levels. Closer to home in Worcester County, friends and neighbors are struggling to put food on the table. The YMCA boldly engineered a plan to eliminate barriers to access, and today is delivering 34,000 meals each week to local homes, bringing over 500,000 meals to children since the onset of the pandemic.
So where's our community? It's right here. We're not going anywhere. It's true the community may look and feel different, but there's one thing you can always rely on. Your YMCA continues to work hard every day to support our neighbors as best as we can, using every resource that we have at our disposal. And together, we will get through this. In the meantime, stay safe and be well. And we look forward to seeing you at the Y.
All right, so just shifting gears just a little bit here. I added this last slide. Kara and I met and kind of went through my presentation, and then she had sent out the information of Westboro Public Schools and the survey that you guys did. So I was like, can I add one more slide just to kind of phrase this in here as well? So, the final slide that I have here before wrapping up, for equity, is just a piece of the puzzle as we continue to pivot and change to address community need across our service areas. This year, with the seemingly endless incidents of racist violence against Black individuals across our country, has really forced us to reckon with some painful truths. Systematic racism is alive in the United States. It's alive in Westboro. The realization really compels us as individuals at the Burroughs Family Branch to join a movement of Ys across the country to become an anti-racist multicultural organization, which by definition is an organization that intentionally promotes inclusion in all aspects, ensures and sustains diverse representation in our leadership, and leads social change in our communities through anti-racist policies, words, and actions. There are 4 main goals that will help us shape our journey over the coming weeks, months, and years, which include creating frameworks, trainings, partnerships, and developing the leaders within our organization for a better tomorrow. At the end of the day, the Y isn't a gym and swim. And we have that common misperception up here on Valente Drive. We're a charitable and social change organization. And we know that we can certainly be a valuable partner. And as our president and CEO, David Connell, said it in the video, we're not going anywhere. The community's here to stay, and we're here to support your work, the work of Northborough, the work of Shrewsbury, Marlborough, anyone in our service area, and whatever we can do to support you guys, we are certainly willing and able and capable to do. So I know, I believe Rana had a question or two, and if we have time, Kara, I would love to open it up to folks if there are anything they want to comment on or ask.
So I applaud the attempt to sensitize those who have more to those who have less. However, I feel that race was pretty appalling because of the children who are in the back were stigmatized. In that, and that if I was one of those children in the back, I would have been beside myself with shame. And I don't think that is a way to sensitize children on the backs of the pain of other children. Sure.
And I think what we've learned from all of this as we continue through this journey is we have to be honest. And there is these types of actions happening in our community. We have to look at ourselves and look at who we are as well. It's certainly a video, and it's a powerful video, and I think it did exactly what the makers of it were intending it to do. It's creating dialogue between folks to have these conversations that wouldn't normally be had. So I really appreciate you sharing how you felt about it, Rana. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, first of all, thanks for coming. As the teacher on the committee, I can tell you that I am beyond thankful about all of the food you've helped deliver and all the kids, like seeing the kids there learning, it really warms my heart. I would love to reach out to you if possible and figure out more information. I like how you said it's sometimes people just think you're like a swim and gym. And I will be honest, I also have that impression of it. But I can think of so many families that I personally work with that a lot of that stuff would really help. So thanks so much for coming. And I definitely look forward to investigating it a little bit more.
Sure. I would love to speak with that at any time, Sarah. So I appreciate that.
I do think that we'll be in touch over time. Jeff and I have talked in the past about coordinating around food insecurity and other things. And so I really do foresee the Y being an ongoing partner. So we will think about opportunities to bring you and your folks back, Jeff. And I really appreciate your contribution to today's meeting.
Awesome. I appreciate you giving me a few minutes to talk about the Y and listen to the rest of your meeting. So thank you.
It was truly our pleasure, and I do hope you'll stay with us for the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kara.
All right. Jim Robinson says regrets. He had some difficulty connecting to the meeting, but I think we did a good job advertising the public meeting for the master plan this evening. I hope people will attend that. And I want to shift our attention now to the Westboro Public Schools. We have with us Superintendent Amber Bach and Assistant Superintendent Daniel Mayer. And I'm just going to let you take it from here.
Great. So it's good to see all of you. Jeff, I was glad I caught the end of your presentation, and the Y has always been so good about outreach to us for organizational support of community needs. And we are longstanding members of the Y ourselves and know it to be such a vibrant and caring space for so many diverse families. So I look forward to ongoing partnership. It's good to see all of you. Daniel and I are pleased to have an opportunity to be here with you for the start of a conversation. Hi, Shazia. I just saw you hop back in. And Ryan, it's good to see you. So I see some faces and Michael, people I'm familiar with, and I just want to thank you for inviting us. I've asked Kara if I might join the committee, and I feel that we have such strong representation with you. With Sarah at the table, I think her voice carries, really deep knowledge about the district, but I've asked Kara, as does Ryan and Shazia, actually. But I just wondered if it might be, given the ongoing commitment-based work we will have to, the implementation of a new strategic plan inclusive of more diversity goals, I would just want to join the committee if you would have me to contribute where I might and learn from you as well. Daniel and I wanted to join you today for the start of the conversation to look at the diversity data and the racist incident-based survey that we sent to the district. Our purpose was to extend conversations and to take feedback and to be vulnerable to opening up the depth of really direct questions around what experiences with racism do you have in the district, and let's ask the questions in a clear and transparent way and learn from that data to guide our sense of urgency. And I think I would love to hear your reflections on the data and what you might add. We, certainly Daniel and I, have spent a good amount of time looking at it. We've spent hours with the leadership team looking at it, as well as are currently prepping a faculty meeting that's coming up for the March PD Day, where we'll be immersed in assessing the data up close again. So our faculty is really reflecting on it right now. And then Daniel and I are visiting various groups in the community to get your feedback as well. And from there, we'll take those nuggets of ideas and thoughts and passions and fold them into our strategic plan. And then I would be able to bring that back to you and share it to you again to see the direction of our goals and our work. So to start conversation, Daniel could do, I don't know what would work for you as a committee, having just joined you. Would you like Daniel to do like a 5-minute synopsis of the data and then open it up for conversation? He's, very versed in kind of stepping you through it. And then from there, I guess we would ask 2 questions, reactions and reflections on the data, but then also messages to us around what you hope for the direction of the work of the district. And again, this isn't like you have to have it all in one conversation now because it's an ongoing conversation, but we could do that. I see Karen, a few people nodding. So why don't I turn it over to Daniel?
That would be a really helpful way to get started.
Give you guys a synopsis. Daniel, I'll cue you up then, or you're still muted, and I will.
Okay, I just want to make sure I've got the data up here in the background before I share my screen. Yeah. So hi, everyone. I've never seen so many Daniels on one. I know, technically Mike his last name's Daniel, but we've got 3 different Daniels represented here. So that's good. It's like the very high ratio of Daniels. Yeah. So let's see this. Let me share my screen. So this document has a cover note that went out with it, and there's a lot of different graphs and tables in here. So I'm gonna just step you through a little bit and try not to overwhelm you, because I think we want to spend more time talking about it than actually looking at all the subtleties in the data. But I mean, one of the things that we wanted to make sure we were doing this year is reaching out to our parents, our teachers, and our students to see their perceptions of where they may see issues having to do with racism in the school district. And we included all parents, all teachers, and then students who are in grades 7 through 12 in this. And, one of the things, the punchline in some sense is that we did, discover, not surprisingly, in some sense, that like the rest of the world in the United States, we have work to do, that there are perceptions among our faculty and our parents and our students that there are issues that need to be tended to. And so I'll show you first here the student part of the data, and that this blue box here is how our district looks actually in terms of the percent of students we have of these different groups. So we have 51% of our students are white and 35% are Asian. And so, 2% African American, 8% Hispanic. There's multi-race at 3.2. And then we sampled our students and asked them to participate, and 67% of them participated. And when you look at the percent breakdowns here, they match pretty much what we have in terms of the demographic that is in our district. And we broke the data down by white, Asian, Hispanic, and Black, and asked them specific questions about their observations. Some of them are about staff members, and some of them are about other students. And one of the things that became clear to us is that we saw clear differences in the perceptions depending upon whether you're a white student versus an Asian student, a Hispanic, or Black when it came to many of these questions. And so our Latinx and Black students in particular, are consistently sort of finding that they're not in that never category. So they say they see staff members acting in a racist manner towards students of color, and we would want these numbers to be at. Have you witnessed staff members acting in a racist manner? Never. We want that to be at 100%. So even 87% of our whites is lower than we want it to be. But you can see that among our minority students that there's a higher prevalence of observation of racist kind of behavior. And then this is asking whether you've seen students acting in a racist manner. And one of the things that is if you compare, the faculty to the students, so these are students saying, I see, this is what I see in terms of our faculty, and this is what I see in terms of our students. And the students are reporting, if you can see by just looking in the never category and comparing it in the top chart to the bottom chart, that there's more prevalence of like racist kind of mannerisms happening student to student than faculty to student. That doesn't mean that there aren't issues of faculty to student, but for example, to be very concrete, 87% of our white students would say, I never see it faculty to student, but 62% of our white students would say they definitely are seeing it. It's not never. So only, so as you go through the data, you see these kind of patterns that are worth picking out and focusing on. There's questions here about getting into trouble and whether there's higher instances for the minority students in getting into trouble. There's questions in here about how comfortable do you feel expressing to staff members, telling staff members that that you've experienced or witnessed racist acts. We focused a lot on how the this comfort level is much lower than we want it to be. That while if you take agree and strongly agree and put them together, they're fairly solid in terms of numbers, but we want this strongly agree to be up towards 100% for everyone. And you can see among our Black students in particular and Hispanics to have, what comes out to almost 50% of our Black students disagreeing or strongly disagreeing. It means they don't feel safe going to the staff to say that they've experienced some inappropriate behavior or seen inappropriate behavior. In terms of feeling welcomed in the school, it's interesting to contrast these numbers. While 50% will say they see among the Blacks will say they've seen behavior they don't like. You have 25% saying disagreeing that they're comfortable in our schools. So you don't have 50% of them saying I'm just not comfortable coming into the Westboro Public Schools. So the minority students will see things that they don't like, but it doesn't mean that they're feeling unwelcome. But there's certainly, as you can see in this 13% and number here, are not likely to strongly agree that they feel welcome in our schools. So there's sort of, there's definitely some isolation that they're feeling in terms of cultural acceptance. Feeling threatened or bullied, we're encouraged by these numbers, and that they're very low, off in the sometimes often range here. I mean, anything is problematic, but it does speak to there's a difference between witnessing high proportion of students witnessing things that they think are inappropriate and racist, and feeling bullied. And so, not to say that that makes it more acceptable that it's up at 50% in terms of things that they witnessed, but on the other hand, they're not feeling like that the bullying is a constant factor here. So let's see. I
think too, one of the things we talked about too is, when you speak to the culture of like what school feels like, you might not feel that you're being targeted. You might know that the overall cultural hope of the district is to welcome you, but you still experience and see acts of racist behavior because of the trajectory of what we know kind of lives either under the surface or directly out in people's behavior for biases and culturally inappropriate or directly racist kind of comments. So I think we acknowledge that. I think that's what that data, when you step back from it, kind of says to us. I would say that our faculty, it'd be interesting for the faculty to dig into this. I think that, they'll say, I feel safe and welcome, but I don't feel like I would go talk to someone about race and racist behavior because I don't feel it would get handled appropriately. And we hear that extensively. I think they feel that our faculty want to mitigate it or to brush it under the rug or to tell them that it wasn't what you thought and we're sorry and we'll even it out. And I think they see those types of behaviors as inappropriate handled incidences, and I don't disagree, in the way that they've felt responded to. So I think that this data makes sense to us. And I do believe that the data, just in order to make sure we have time to talk today, Daniel, I do believe that if you spend some time in this data and you react to it, that maybe if we, even if we don't go through all of it, but we do just maybe even these snapshots around the students. I see the students' data as the most a kind of anchor.
Yeah, I'm fine leaving it with just the student data for the time being, if that's what people want to do. I will say one thing about the student data that I want to make very clear, that there will be those, there are those people that like to deny that there's an issue that you need to work on, and they're going to go and point to this data and say, well, you only have 32 students here who are talking for the African Americans, but you know what? That 32, we have 3% of our students. We have more, are African American, and 32 is almost all of the students that are in grade 7 through 12 who are African American. And how they feel matters. It doesn't matter that it's only 32. So if somebody starts going down the road of you only had 32, that's not because of a lack of representation. It's not because these 32, there's 500 other ones we didn't survey. These are the 32 students. So I think it's really important to say that, because I'm just going to be very clear and transparent that I do think that some people have an agenda to take data and sort of try to delegitimize it in those ways.
Yeah, I think we've heard comments where people say, well, one person can swing a small number by a large percentage. So those percentages aren't, the same equitable kind of meaning. And we say that's not true. It represents the percentage of our students who have commented. And I think it speaks to cultural norms that we're not surprised they answered those things. I think people are surprised at the data that they don't feel safe going to teachers. I think that's going to be very interesting to look at our teachers unpack that, because I think they don't believe that that's what the cultural norm of the buildings are. And so I think that's just going to be an anchor point for discussion. I guess I would open it up. I think it's good to take it in slices. So let's talk about this, what you thought, what you see, and what you want to say to us.
Mike has his hands up.
So I was a former student at Westboro High. I graduated in 1995. And I think these numbers are extremely encouraging. I think that's good that the students feel safe. And it sounds like you have a zero tolerance policy for, I'm assuming that's correct. You have a zero tolerance policy for bullying or anything, as it pertains to racism. And I can tell you from personal experience, having been a student at obviously being a person of color at the Westboro High School during between 1991 and 1995, it was very difficult. There were some things that I personally experienced that I didn't feel comfortable going to a teacher and saying, hey, I'm feeling this way, or I felt, I was mistreated. But that data and those statistics, I mean, definitely lend itself well to, proactive enforcement of a zero tolerance policy. And I'm glad to see that. And at that time, I think in my graduating class, we had, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 persons of color. And when I say persons of color, I mean African Americans. And it was, back then you felt it. But it's awesome that you have these students that feel that the environment and the school environment is safe. And that's definitely encouraging.
Progress, but definitely not at a place of where we want it to be. And I think, again, the incidences are happening. Some, again, intent and impact is always, might not be intent, but the impact is real and needs to be corrected. Ima, you were going to speak. Sorry, hop in.
It's pronounced Ima.
Hi, Ima.
Hi. So I just have a few questions. First is kind of how is the school district planning to
we lost you there for a minute, Ima.
Sorry, can you hear me better now?
We can, yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. So how does the school district plan to, I guess, have or address implicit bias, like for cultural competency or cultural intelligence training for both faculty as well as students, just so that there is like a clear definition of safety culture and what kind of reporting methods are going to be in place for those students, since they currently don't feel safe reporting to teachers and faculty. So what kind of reporting methods have you've been exploring?
Yeah, those are great questions. So I would say I can tell you some of where we are, and it doesn't represent that the fact that we also want to do more of all those things, and that there's things we're looking to add. So we've run several strands of cultural proficiency coursework, and they're robust and have grown in the depth of content and reading and push around really digging deeply around looking at implicit bias, racist perspective, and developing a deep cultural proficiency both in curriculum work and in self-behavior and self-reflection. I think our focus is that we feel strongly that until people do the work personally, you can't just like tell people to fix curriculum, right? So for us, the focus in Westboro for me is it's in, if you look at what the experiences are in talking with students or parents, it's a comment that will be made. It's a behavior that's explicit in the way someone works with you. And those are the self-work pieces that we have to do so that those things become more and more mitigated until we hit that 100% that Dana was talking about. So we're looking at adding more cultural proficiency coursework, making it a requirement of your first 3 years is like one of the things that we're looking at discussing. So, and adding more coursework as a piece. And then I guess we're also looking at we have done some work more on the equity base, and I would certainly defer to Ryan. I'm sure he can represent this well in terms of the high school. We have really talked about safe spaces and teachers who have defined themselves along the continuum of being safe spaces for all identity and needs of student. And they actively will speak of their space being a safe space for all, and they will post their door with a marker, at least as again, interventions for faculty to define themselves as committed, even if they will continue to need their own supports to do good work. Our reporting methods, we maintain our anonymous concerns open post, which is always available to families and students. I think we would make that a more active site in terms of how we market it. But we do get reports through that methodology, and it's anonymous and allows us to respond when people don't feel safe to come forward individually. And I guess, I think though, to your language around ensuring a safety-based culture, I think there's more definitive work to be done in that where there's common language. And those are the types of suggestions that it's really good to come to talk to a committee and surface ideas. So I think that is intriguing to me, and I would want to hear more about it.
So I want to add too, I think it's imperative that we sit down in safe settings with students of color, family representatives of colors, and have focus groups about what they need specifically and what they would suggest for us to help us work on the issue. Because I don't think that we can pretend that we have the answers without having more sort of in-depth discussions.
I had a couple of questions. Ima, are you done?
I just had a follow-up. So I was wondering more specifically if the district had hired either a third-party agency that is made up of diversity inclusion strategists, or like what resources is the school district using to, I guess, both educate both the school and the staff about diversity inclusion, as well as evaluate how the process is going and if it's actually making progress?
And I'll certainly speak to what we're currently doing, but I think, again, you'll see that these are areas where we want to layer in more active work, and that would be part of kind of improved strategic planning around these pieces. We definitely, it'd be interesting to go back and actually compile a list of the professionals that we've had to come in and do PD development, intervention work around equity. It tends to be school-based targeted, so you really get the focus by grade level. We have brought in a variety of professional development and kind of training-based active groups to work with actively a lot at the high school, but also at Gibbons and some of our targeted elementary schools. So I think I'd want to compile that list. It might be a good return piece to look at, to share. But I think that if we were to add some additional coursework, we've talked about whether or not we would want to hire that from outside. Currently, the cultural proficiency course is taught by internal staff. Maeve Hitzenbuehler, who's the ELL director, and various faculty that she works with, and then professional speakers they bring in during the course to provide different lenses and different life experiences and different perspectives to the course. So it has an array of people. And I think that AVC, the Asset Valley Collaborative, is a resource that we go to for some PD work, and they trained some of our early cultural proficiency coursework. We took the whole leadership team several years ago. So things like that. But I think it'd be good to compile a list and look at it, which we'd be happy to do.
Rana, I know, has wanted to say something, and then Ryan.
It's a question, actually. Have there been instances where students have reported on discrimination? And if there have, what has been the response?
Sure. We have had incidences where students have reported discrimination, either in an experience related to coursework or school or treatment by another student. And all of those, when they happen, have a formal reporting structure. It depends on what the case is. If it's bullying, it follows a bullying track, even if there are aspects around the bullying that relate to race. If it's harassment, it goes directly to an internal process that would go actually to Daniel, where he follows course, and he has to file a report. He has to have a finding, with to interact with people. So there's a protocol that's utilized around incidences like that. And I would say, to our good fortune, although again, it doesn't mean that we don't have things going on, those are relatively small number of incidences. But yes, we have had them.
Thank you.
So then, yep.
And after Ryan, I know Shazia wants to say something too.
As someone who worked their senior year in the ESL classroom as an in-class interpreter for primarily Hispanic and Latinx students, I'm curious regarding the distribution of the survey and what efforts were made to provide translated copies of the survey to students who don't necessarily speak English as their first language.
Good question.
Sure.
We did definitely, we translated it. We had it in Spanish and Portuguese and Arabic. A number of Spanish students did fill out the, the Spanish version of it. And if you go back and look at the percent of students that, are Hispanic that are represented in our sample, it's comparable to the percent of students that we have in the school. So the Latinx students, I do think had their voice was heard. There's always a question of did they feel comfortable enough putting the truth down, even though it was an anonymous survey? Is the data really is there some bias there that we need to worry about? That's part of the reason for wanting to have some focus groups and make sure we have some discussions with students so we can, unpack about, really what their feelings are and more in depth. I mean, this was just an initial polling to get just a sense of what people would report in that kind of setting.
Thank you. I'm really appreciative and grateful that you guys have been doing work like this and really trying to dismantle such a huge, pervasive issue.
Thank you.
Shazia?
Thank you. This one. All right. So my question is, clearly some work was being done before the survey was taken. So when the survey, the data of the survey, was it reflective of what you guys were expecting? Was it worse? Was it better? I'm just wondering if you have an opinion on that.
Oh, that's such a good question, Shazia. I think that, well, I would have a better opinion about that after we have our faculty meeting coming up, because they're going to be diving more deeply. And I kind of be interesting to then hear their reflections on what surprised them. I can speak for myself. I mean, I was not surprised by the data. I think it illustrates the truth of where we are, which actually was reassuring to me, because I feel there was enough truth telling in it that it gives us a lens to hold up to people, to give them a sense of urgency for the continuation of this work. I was heartened by the data, as Daniel held out, that students feel welcomed. And I think we've done a lot of work on being welcoming and trying to create safe spaces and being explicit with families that they're welcome. And you'd like to think that we've made some progress on people feeling the direct impact of that. And I believe we have. So that was affirming, if not surprising. But I think the data was about what I expected to see, Shazia. I think it's better than it would have been 3 years ago. I think if we look at like the incidence of like our ongoing corrections to curriculum and diversity of text and the ongoing work around more explicit training, I think the data was better than it would have been probably 3 years ago. But I still think it's the truth.
Yeah, thank you. My second question was regarding reporting and kids not feeling comfortable sharing and the zero tolerance policy. I, being a parent of 4 kids, 3 in the school, don't understand how that reflects or how that defines to teachers, like faculty and students. And would we benefit from, and I mean, I don't want to have a complaint department as such, but would we benefit from a structure or that could be more vigilant, because kids feel kids feel more that there is a shoving under the shrug policy and there's no use to complain or stuff like that, just to address that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I'll just represent my own opinion on that for right now, but I think that what's really interesting is when you ask students directly, they're very, very truth-telling. Like, so the discussion around like having more explicit, direct conversations where we sit down and we talk about race, I think what the bottom line is that everybody knows we're not talking enough about race and racism and bias. We've definitely increased our talk about equity, and it gave us an entry anchor, but it was a soft entry on the difference between when you just go out there and you say, how many racist incidences are you experiencing, is a harder hitting tone and approach. I wouldn't have asked it that way like 3 years ago, but now I feel like we've grown to that place where we can put out that data and let it smack us in the face a bit and say, okay, like, you know, but when you talk to kids, they tell you. I mean, if you sit down, and I sampled my own range of time to talk to students, and many of them actually, I've had 5 meetings, which I think is kind of interesting, where students texted me and asked to sit down and talk to me. And I just had conversations to listen to their perspectives, and they wanted to meet with me to share them. And they have a lot of good things to say, and they have beautiful perspectives about where we are with race, and will be very clear about the racist experiences they've had and that they need, and where they think the failings are. So I think it's that we're not asking them explicitly with the invitation to report, and that's different than waiting for someone to be courageous enough to come forward. And I think that's part of the self-correction of kind of next steps for us. And I don't even know if it would be a complaint board so much as, you know, a way that we continue to gather more purposeful data around how we're doing. And I think the last comment is, the Metro West survey data has always helped us as a benchmark for good data gathering on where we are. And then I think we'll partner it with race-based data that is more explicit so we can track our improvement. But I do think that we need to be more targeted in again, you're also not asking people to then come in and represent themselves. It's a delicate line. Like, you don't want to be like, hey, come into a focus group and tell me how you feel, but then you've pulled a slice that is, again, a group that often can feel visible. So I think it's a delicate line, and we've spent a lot of time talking about that internally. So I think how we launch that and how we invite those focus groups needs to be thoughtful. And I think this group would be a great group to try out our ideas on and make sure that you feel like it represents the appropriate way to pose those invitations.
I guess I think your answer is broad, or you misunderstood what I said. I was just referring to an individual student that approaches a faculty member, and the support that we can offer them. I didn't mean in terms of turning it into a survey or a data or something, individual support to individual people that don't know what the process is or try to speak up, but, then it's like, go to the guidance counselor, and that's the end of it. So that's what I was asking, not in terms of data collection.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to misunderstand you, Shazia. I mean, I think that our staff, I think that kids do go to people. We don't always answer their questions the right way.
Right. So I hear Shazia saying, kind of building on what Ema was talking about the safety culture of really creating explicit processes where students and faculty who experience bias, racism, microaggressions in whatever form can really directly know that there is an identified person or persons or process where I will be protected, where my confidentiality will be regarded, where I can know that I'm going to be safe outside of focus groups, outside of data gathering, but really like in a seeking some kind of justice process, I think, does that kind of touch on what you were speaking to, Ema and Shazia?
Yes, you
exactly.
Thank you for articulating that.
Okay, now I know that Sarah has wanted to say something. No, thank you. I know Sarah wants to say something, and I also know that Daniel and Amber have a hard stop in 2 minutes. So Sarah, please make your comment, and then we'll kind of wrap up.
Just quickly, as a faculty member in one of the schools, I think that as an overlooking branch, we do have the students' need in mind. I mean, I'm at the elementary level, so I can only speak for that. But I will say there are some squeaky wheels that we have to work out. But I do think that what I'm hearing as well is you want the students to be able to come to us and have them feel comfortable. And as teachers as a whole, and all of the time I've studied education, it's always been like, we're kind of like robots that we're not allowed to have our feelings. So I think that's kind of something that we have to delve into, as well as where we should also be allowed to communicate things that we feel as well.
Interesting. Yeah. So I agree with all of this. And these are the kind of ideas that we're gathering as we sharpen our perspective around action steps that will fold into our new strategic planning. And I think as a district, we remain committed to the fact that when we put it in print and we lay it out and we map it, we will get it done. And that's the articulated, commitment of the district and the leadership team and our faculty. So I love the idea of explicit processes and a better safety culture and a common language for that, and a process that could be appropriate by grade level. I also think then there's a layer of training, which is, the people that we naturally send kids to, that they do go to, haven't answered questions in a way that make them feel reassured. And that's where there's the training piece as well. I think they feel like guidance counselors try to kind of ameliorate things with, I can make you feel better, and then I'll take care of it privately, and you'll never know what happened. It's like not what you want to hear when you come forward with perspectives where you need to feel there's resolution that you get to participate in understanding. So there's lots of good work ahead. Daniel and I do need to leave because we're actually attending another kind of emergency meeting today. But I just want to say this, that we see this as the start of the conversation. I would, if, again, affirmed by Kara, would join the committee and continue to share with you our progress. And I would encourage you, again, we'd be happy to come back for a second process of conversation around the ideas that are getting surfaced. I'll bring to you the working draft of the strategic plan, and then we just layer ongoing work into it because it's supposed to have the voice of the community and the district and our families.
And I want to say, Amber, that this conversation could be had with the town leadership as well. I think these are questions, processes, issues that are not unique to the district, but are town-wide. And so these are questions we need to be asking across the system entirely. So I think this is something to work with jointly. And regarding you joining the committee, I'll talk to you offline. It's Christy as the town manager who appoints members, and our membership is totally full right now, but it's worth having a conversation with her about what role you might be able to play in a more formal, structured way.
I am happy to attend as a listening guest because I know they're posted open meetings. I mean, I don't feel like I have to be a member. I'm happy to attend as a community member. It's whatever's workable for all of you guys. I think that, again, I know Sarah provides a strong voice, but I think it's important that you get feedback on where we are too. So,
isn't there aren't there provisions for town personnel, as it were, to be members of the committee? I'm not exactly sure, Karen. You probably know better, and Christy does too. But
just in the way that we already are, not in addition.
Okay.
Yeah. Amber and Daniel, thank you for your time, and we will have you back. I think this is a conversation that is warranted to continue sooner than later.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Good to see you all. Thank you guys.
We'll see you at the master plan tonight.
I know. Yes. See you there. Bye.
All right. And I'm thrilled to see that Jim Robbins has joined us. I'm sorry for the difficulties earlier, Jim, but this is actually a perfect time for you to come and talk about the master plan public meeting that's happening tonight. We want to hear more.
Thank you very much, Kara. It's exciting to be here. I've never been to this particular group's meeting before, so thanks for having me. For those of you that don't know me, I am Jim Robbins, the town planner, and I've been the town planner in Westboro now for 27 years, a long time. And I'm doing this on my wife's computer, and she's an artist. She's a graphic artist, so you can probably see, and I'm sitting in her studio on one of her computers. So much better background than you would have if I were sitting in my office in the planning department. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing tonight. We're in the second phase of the master plan development process. And the first phase was what we called Westboro Explores. And that lasted about 8 months. And of course, COVID extended it. We didn't expect to have that long of a period in phase one, but we took a break for about 3 months over the summer. We thought things would be back to normal in the fall, but obviously, as we've learned, they weren't. And so we're moving at a slower pace than we initially wanted to be. But just about a year ago, on February 29th, leap year day of last year, we had our first public hearing at the high school in the cafeteria, and it was attended by 120 residents, which I consider a tremendous success. We filled the cafeteria tables, and we received comments and tons of questions, which really formed the basis for the things we were going to look at in the master plan. And we always look at the usual, what I call the usual suspects: transportation, zoning, land use, open space, housing, cultural and historical aspects to the town. But as a result of those discussions that we had in the very infancy of the study, we added a couple additional things that are not traditional to master plans. One of them was public health. So for the first time, I think, that I've ever seen in a master plan, we're going to have a couple chapters on public health. We're also going to have a chapter on climate change and sustainability. And also, as you know, we've added diversity to the master plan. So that's why I'm here today. And I wanted to make sure that all of you have information about tonight's second public meeting. We call this Westboro Considers, or Westboro Proposes, because this is where we're actually going to unveil the goals of the master plan that came out of the phase one and talk about our vision for the town going forward. And the last phase, which will be later in the spring, probably in May or June, will be called Westboro Concludes, or Westboro Confirms. And that will be where we actually present the plan to the town. But here we are in the second phase where Westboro is considering and proposing its goals and its visions for the town. And if I can share my screen, oh, thank you very much, Kara. Did you just put that up? The information for this evening. So you can attend 3 ways. You can either scan the QR code, which is right there, and the meeting is at 6:30, as you see, or you can use the link, which is on the bottom in the black bar, or you can call in. And once you join the meeting, there'll be an introduction by our chairman, Lester Hensley, who will explain the process very similar to what I just did, and then invite you to participate in one of the 9 breakout rooms that we're going to have. And each breakout room is specifically dedicated to one of the 9 areas, 9 chapters that we're going to consider during the master plan. So there'll be one on culture and history and diversity. You may not get put into that room, but the facilitators of all the chapters will cycle through the rooms. So there'll be 4 to 5 different breakout times. So chances are you'll get to hear one of the areas that you're specifically interested in. And if, for example, you're interested in something that you didn't hear, there'll be an opportunity for you to participate or ask questions at the end when we reconvene after the breakout groups. And also the town website, which I believe is shown on this invite. Yes, right at the bottom. Thank you, Kara. You can submit questions or comments at any time. So if you can't attend this evening's meeting, but you had a question on something, please send it to that address. It'll get to myself and to the leadership group of the committee, and we will definitely respond to you. We've had numerous questions in the last year, and we've responded to them, and we will continue to do that, to work your ideas into the master plan. So Kara, I want to share the vision statement right now with the group.
All right, you should be set up to be able to share.
Looks like I can, thank you. Let's see there. I'm sure you all can see on the left-hand side of the screen. I'm going to try and make that a little bit bigger. The vision statement. So this was finally approved by the advisory committee in January 27th, only a few weeks ago. And it's a little bit about the town and what we want to do going forward. So Westboro was incorporated in 1717 and is a New England town between Worcester and Boston that is home to a diverse community with a strong sense of pride and a can-do spirit. This is underscored by its commitment to equity and inclusivity, as well as widespread civic engagement and participation. Our people are what makes Westboro great. Together, we have reflected, explored, and confirmed our vision for the future. We are a community that will be balanced. We measure new development against our ambition to preserve our historic and cultural heritage, as well as the unique and important natural resources that support biodiversity and contribute to the scenic character of our surroundings. We are connected. Our sense of community permeates throughout our inclusive social, educational, recreational, and cultural activities and the many spaces in which these activities take place. The human qualities of Westboro are continually evolving, and with the increasing diversity of our collective backgrounds and abilities. We are desirable and accessible. Our attractive neighborhoods offer exceptional schools, confidence in public safety, and a range of housing options with a focus on increasing affordabilities and opportunities. We are a great place to live across lifetimes. We are thriving. We are a hub of economic activities at the crossroads, the Mass Pike, I-495, and Route 9 within the Metro West region. This is thanks to businesses, both large and small, the latter of which are the backbone of our vibrant, mixed-use, historic downtown. We are multimodal. We are served by a range of efficient local and regional transportation networks, including linkages to regional commuter and our expanding network of pedestrian and biking facilities, highlighted by our trails network, including the much used and treasured Charm Bracelet. We are sustainable. Our policies and actions reflect our commitment to continuously lessening our environmental impact locally and globally, as well as our focus on ensuring public health and wellness. And finally, we are trusted. Our town government provides innovative and high-quality municipal and educational services by means that are consistent with its strategic mission and values. So that's quite a lot. But I think if you take a look at this vision for the town and what we've reflected on in the last year, you'll find that we've included most all of the topics that would affect both the built environment, the cultural environment, and the natural environment. So if you think there's anything missed here, please let us know either this evening if you attend the meeting or by sending us an email. And Kara, I don't know how much time you've given me. I can either take questions now, or I was prepared to also share one of the subgroups presentations this evening so that you could get an idea of what we'll be talking about tonight.
Unfortunately, I think we need to move to questions just so we have a bit of time at the end of our meeting to chat as a group. So please go ahead and ask questions, folks. Do you want to stop sharing, Jim, so we have a little better view of
Sure.
the group?
So I can. Apologies here.
I can stop you sharing. There we go.
There you go. Thank you.
I'll say my comment is that if you might not have gotten a chance to see the little video that Ema shared with us about the interconnectedness between health disparities and systemic oppression, essentially, but also policies and politics. But watching that video made me think of the master plan, because it means that every level of the master plan that Jim mentioned has something very directly to do with the opportunities for people. We have an opportunity to create equity here with the master plan. And so again, I think as you saw with the vision and values that there is effort being made to include issues of equity in the planning process, but we could always do more. And so if you are a Westboro resident, I strongly encourage you to attend and participate in this evening's meeting, because my experience is that every person's input really is taken into consideration. Any other thoughts or questions?
I just had, is it also going to be on channel 24?
Channel 28, as well as Westboro TV. Yes. So if you're using Verizon, it's Verizon channel 28. If you wish to use Westboro TV, it's going to be streamed live.
Thank you.
But you can't participate if you watch it. If you want to participate, you have to log in, all that. So
gotcha.
Thank you, Jim. I'll see you in just a bit.
Yeah, thanks very much. And again, my apologies. My computer crashed, so I had to scurry to get here, but I'm so glad that you gave me an opportunity to speak. Thank you. And I hope you all have an opportunity to participate in the master plan.
Thank you. So I am going to consolidate all of our other agenda items and say, let's just name our parking lot items that we will get to in the coming meetings. So we have a couple of minutes just to reflect on all we took in today. So the items that will be continued are at the top of the list is continuing to talk about the language access plan, continuing conversations about our presence in social media and promotion of the work that we're doing. If you haven't already, even though it's not riveting material, please do look at the policies and guidelines that I attach, because those really will let us know the limits of what we can and cannot do. And then I know that Shelby sends her regrets that she wasn't here, but she also wants to talk a little bit more about via transportation. Are there other topics that we need to make sure that we are holding at the forefront for upcoming meetings?
Well, I think I will be attending that faculty meeting that Amber and Daniel were speaking of, so I will probably have some more insight about possible next steps for how we could help the school district as well. So I will make sure I have some things to report on for that as well.
Great. I'll include in some time for us to reflect on everything that we talked about today too. Ryan?
This is not necessarily a parking lot item, but I just wanted to bring attention to the overwhelming rise in Asian hate crimes and racism during this time, especially within these past few weeks. It's something that's starting to appear in news outlets, but it's always been here for a really long time. And as the vice president of my Vietnamese association, I've been following this issue since the very start of the pandemic, and there have been thousands upon thousands of attacks against Asian Americans in the US. Stop AAPI Hate has recorded over 2,800 accounts of anti-Asian hate nationwide, and that's a 1,900% increase from the start of COVID-19, which really breaks my heart. Last week, I awoke to the story of Visha Ratanapakdi, who's an 84-year-old Thai American from San Francisco, who was on his morning walk and was shoved to the ground, ultimately killed. And I slammed my laptop shut right away with literal tears in my eyes because he looked just like my Amnoy, my grandfather. And for the rest of the day, I couldn't sit still. I was so angry that I shook with it, and my hands curled into fists that I didn't know what to do with. I should not have to worry that my grandfather will be slammed to the ground and killed on his morning walk. And I shouldn't have to worry that my grandmother will be set on fire while putting out the trash. I shouldn't have to worry, but here I am worrying because these are real cases and real people. These incidents have occurred and people aren't talking about it enough. And although violence against our community has been exacerbated and by hateful and discriminatory rhetoric during this pandemic, it's important to note that anti-Asian racism has always been present and pervasive. This nation has a long history of marginalization and employment of a system designed to push us aside, other us, and ultimately erase us. From the Chinese Exclusion Act to Vincent Chen to the Japanese internment camps and so on. But the discrimination we face is not a symptom of sole hatred against our community, but also hatred and systemic oppression against our Black, Brown, and Indigenous peers. So therefore, we must work together in solidarity to dismantle the overarching issues of American exceptionalism, colonialism, xenophobia, and white supremacy. So I really encourage the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, the Westboro Committee, and other allies to become informed about these hate incidents, to learn about the resources available to support Asian Americans during this time, and to speak up in the face of apathy. Because when it comes to making change and pursuing justice, the most dangerous thing is apathy, silence. If people stay silent in the face of hate, nothing will change. Asian Americans are 100% American, and we are not any less deserving of respect and peace. So I think it's really time we get people to realize that. And if you can all talk about it and promote it within your own networks and communities, a lot of great change can be made. And I'm hopeful that it's possible.
I'm incredibly thankful that you spoke up, and thank you for preparing that information for us. This is education that we shouldn't need, but we do. And it is a role that we can take to bring these issues more to the forefront so that they are not hidden. And maybe I can talk to you between meetings about ways that we can highlight the experiences of Asian Americans in our community without tokenizing or putting anybody on the spot. So I'll talk to you about that offline.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Any final comments just about our time today? We will certainly reflect on it next time, but it's been a lot to take in. Anything else folks want to say?
Sorry, Ryan, I just want to say that I'm sorry that this is the way that you're feeling, and I'm sorry that this is what you're experiencing.
Thank you so much. It really disheartens me, this entire situation, because My parents really love this country. I love this country. They always tell me this anecdote about the time they came over as refugees from the Vietnam War. They stayed in camps for months, years even. And the reason for that is not because they didn't receive any offers. It's because they declined offers from every single country, from Canada, France, Australia, because they were holding out on America, the land of hope and opportunity. So they really love this country. I love this country. I just wish sometimes that it would love us back and that it would hear us. But I am hopeful with all these actions being taken, with this committee being a driving force in the community, that in 20, 30 years, there'll be a lot of progress made and equity and equality will be achieved.
We'll stand in that hope with you, Ryan. All right, that's a lovely note to end on. And I very much appreciate all of you and the work we're doing together. And I look forward to continuing it next month. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Kara.
Thank you.